David Attenborough is one of the most legendary names in documentaries. In his over 70-year career, he's narrated over 100 of them, mostly about nature and wildlife. But one of these many documentaries, a rare one about cryptids, is missing. Released in 1975, Fabulous Animals was a 6-episode show connected to a book written that same year by David and the show's producer Molly Cox. Titled David Attenborough's Fabulous Animals, the documentary featured Attenborough talking about real animal discoveries, mythology, and cryptids. I was able to find what appears to be a summary of each episode on a forum called the Museum of Incompetence. The accuracy of the summaries can't be confirmed since we don't have the program itself, but they do seem to match up with the episode titles. The first episode, Here Be Monsters, sees David talk about recently discovered iguanodon skeletons, elephant graveyards, and frozen mammoths. He also talks about giant ground sloth sightings in Patagonia, similar to the Mapinguari. He is also open to the possibility of mammoths surviving in Siberia. In the second episode, David talks about the folktale of the Mermaid of Zenor. He also comments on the giant squid, the HMS Daedalus sea serpent sighting, and the Loch Ness Monster. He proposes that a famous 1933 sighting of the Loch Ness Monster crossing a road is actually a sighting of an eel. Eels are capable of moving around on the ground. The third episode, Dragon and Serpents, talks about the flying lizard of Borneo and the flying paradise tree snakes. David connects a legend of St. Hilda turning snakes into stone with ammonite fossils. Interestingly, this episode was said to have footage from a 1956 expedition David went on to catch a Komodo dragon. This footage is actually currently available through another documentary. Episode 4, Winged Creatures, opens with the story of Sinbad and the Roc. If you're unfamiliar, the Roc is a large bird in Middle Eastern folklore. It also features the dodo, phoenix, and a story of David having to ward off a vampire bat with his boot. This episode also featured footage of David going on an expedition for a large egg. This footage also appears to be available. Episode 5, Horns of Magic, sees David talking about the bull-worshipping religion of Mithraism, the legend of fairy cattle, and the Chillingham wild cattle. The Chillingham wild cattle are a group of aggressive cattle that have lived in one large enclosure for centuries. He also speculates that the unicorn myth was inspired by ancient people transferring horns to animals. In the final episode, Man or Beast, he talks about early reports of baboons that claimed they were partially human, being able to read and write. He thinks that some report of dog-headed people may have been inspired by the Indris lemur. He also interviews Roger Patterson of the Patterson-Gimli film, though he concludes that Patterson was the victim of a hoax. Finally, he states that reports of the Yeti are real, and that some sort of unknown animal is causing them. In addition to this, I've seen old tweets claiming that Squonk of American Legend was mentioned in one of the episodes. Now, as far as I can tell, the only surviving footage available is this clip from a BBC celebratory commercial.
I spend a fair amount of time searching for rare animals in remote parts of the world, and I've been lucky enough to film some of them too.
There is a 5-minute long clip from the show where David talks about the relationship between real animals and fables on Getty Images. Unfortunately, despite my best attempts, they rejected my request to see it. I did find other people asking for the show, however, from what I can tell, it was never re-released on any physical media or shown recently. So that's where the search is at right now. Unless whatever studio owns it decides to release it, or someone finds a physical copy, the show will likely continue to remain lost. The forum post that had the most information about this show did mention that some cryptozoologists had a physical copy, however I cannot confirm this. If you know any way to help out, please let me know. A special thank you to Darren Naish, Ears, Equarep, Ravendale, The Cryptid Archive, Chris, Beneath the Wild, Simon Woolley, Trini, Hours Dark, and Drew. If you'd like to support the channel and show up in the credits, you can check me out on Patreon, which will be linked below. My other social media accounts will also be in the description. That's all for this video. I will see you in the next one.